This is the College Football Game Day Civil War Special.
Welcome to the College Game Day Civil War Preview Special. I'm Jake Zivin alongside a couple of Civil War vets. Damon Griffin, Oregon wide receiver from 1994 to 1998, and Jay Schaake, Oregon State quarterbacks coach from 1991 to 1996. So you guys have been through this. What is Civil War week like?
You know, it's a great time. It's a great Civil War, and you know, it's a rivalry game. It's Oregon State. The city comes together. We had tradition. The freshmen had to carry the seniors off, and as well as we understand that this is our last game playing in the Pac-12 situation.
Yeah, you know, this is a special game, Jake. It is really special. It's, you know, coaching in a lot of different places, this thing has a little bit something special to it, and you really don't know it until you've been in it. It's something special.
We're going to talk about the rivalry as the show goes on. But the Civil War the past 2 seasons has been more of an Oregon coronation than a competitive game. For the first time since the Civil War for the Roses a few years ago, both teams enter this weekend ranked. Here's what's at stake on Saturday. Both teams can still win at least a share of the Pac-12 North title, but only Oregon can represent the North in the conference championship. If Oregon wins the Civil War and UCLA beats Stanford, then the Ducks will host the Pac-12 title game. But if Oregon State wins the Civil War or Stanford beats UCLA, then the Cardinal win the North. There can be a three-way tie if OSU and UCLA both win on Saturday, and in that case, Stanford has the tiebreaker and goes to the conference title game. So let's start breaking down this year's game, the most compelling matchup since the 2009 Civil War for the Roses. We're going to look first at Oregon's high-powered offense against Oregon State's much-improved defense. The Ducks are, of course, statistically one of the best in the country, over 300 rushing yards per game, 5th best in the nation. But the Beavers' run defense has been stellar as well, giving up just over 100 yards per game, 14th best in the country. The Ducks score 52 points a contest. The Beavers give up just about 18 and a half. And up until last week, the Ducks' offense looked unstoppable. Then Stanford stopped them, holding the Ducks to just 14 points, their lowest total since Chip Kelly's first game as head coach in 2009. So all the Beavers have to do is just figure out how to contain the blur. Just watch the game tape, right? All they have to do is watch the tape of Stanford. Not so fast, says Mike Ryan.
Everybody's jumping to the conclusion that all of a sudden there's a magic formula to beating Oregon because Stanford did. That's not true, guys. There is no, okay, watch the film and beat Oregon idea here. Okay, let's just get that. Yeah, I like that. If anybody's really got one of those, we'll take it.
The Ducks agree with Riley. Oregon gave Stanford credit, no doubt about that, but the Ducks say the onus is on themselves, not on any sort of scheme from Stanford.
There's not a specific formula to stop this team. I feel like the only formula is us stopping ourselves.
Stanford came out and played with more effort than us, and I think that's the first time that's happened in a long time since I've been here. And, you know, you can't really coach effort. That's just something you got to come out and bring.
So the Ducks placing the blame on themselves for last week. Do you guys agree? Was it the Ducks beating themselves, or was it something that Stanford did?
I think it was a combination. I think it was a combination. Yeah, they didn't come up with the effort that they usually have before, but I think it was also Stanford really kind of played old school football. They just didn't do anything crazy, nothing special, but what they did was they played hard, they attacked it, they didn't make mistakes. They played mistake-free football. There was no question Stanford football.
Jay, how does OSU apply what Stanford did on Saturday? Does it fall on specific players, a specific position group? How do they apply that?
You know, it's the same deal. We talked about what Stanford was able to do. They were able to make Oregon go a long way to score. They took away that big play, and Oregon State's going to have to take away that fast strike offense and keep them in, you know, a 5 or 10 or 15-yard gain and not let them score really fast.
The Beavers have not been able to stop the Ducks since Chip Kelly has been there. Can they do it this season?
That's the matchup. That's what I'm really looking forward to seeing. Oregon State has gotten smaller and faster on their defense, and a lot of that has to do with the defense spread. So we'll look for some nickel, we'll look for some dime packages where they put more speed, more athleticism on the field, and that I think is what they're going to try to do.
Do you see any way the Beavers can stop the Ducks, Damon?
They can, because they do have a good defense, but I think the one thing that's going to hurt Oregon State is Oregon going to go back and see what the mistakes that they did. And they're going to concentrate and fix those mistakes. And because of that, they're going to attack Oregon State a lot harder. Just like Kenyon Bonner said, those guys knew the mistakes they had. They didn't follow through on their double teams. Stanford's D-lines were splitting those guys, made it so much trouble for them, and they took advantage of those opportunities. I think Oregon's going to make a lot of adjustments, and it's going to be a different game.
Let's flip the matchup now. Oregon State's offense, high-powered as well this season against the Duck defense. Here are the stats. Not much of a run game for the Beavers, but they throw for over 300 yards per contest. The biggest contrast is the turnover category. The Beavers take care of the ball better than anyone in the conference. They have the least number of turnovers lost. The Ducks, the best ball hawks in the Pac-12 with the most turnovers gained. And the Ducks defense looked most vulnerable this season against the team on paper that is the most similar to the Beavers, USC. The Trojans scored 51 points and threw for 484 yards. If USC's Marquise Lee and Robert Woods are the #1 wideout duo in the Pac-12, then Oregon State's Marcus Wheaton and Brandon Cooks are #1A, and the Ducks know it.
I actually think these guys stretch you down the field more. I really do. They really try to get the ball down the field, and these two guys are something special. I'm impressed. Wheaton's going to be playing on Sundays, and the other kid will be playing someday on Sundays.
It was the same situation you had when you had Lee and Woods, because you have two great ones. You can't kind of roll coverage one way. If you do, Cooks will beat you. If you roll it to Cooks, Wheaton's going to beat you.
With Cooks and Wheaton, can the Beavers replicate what USC did against the Ducks?
I think the one difference is there's a guy named Matt Barkley down in Southern California, and that's the big difference that they're going to have. No question, I've been saying this all year, no question, the tandem at Oregon State of Corvallis are as good as USC's, or even better. I wouldn't even necessarily say they're 1A. They are that good. When they are on their game, there is no question. The play action, if there's any run, play action, they will dominate. So Oregon definitely has to be on their P's and Q's, definitely coverage-wise, and not fall on that play action at all.
Oregon State does have big play capability also on their offense, and those two guys have made big plays all year long. But what I think is the key to the game that's similar to what Stanford was, is Oregon State going to be able to move the ball and keep the ball away from Oregon by running the ball. And I thought Stanford would have to get 150 yards rushing, which they did, and I think Oregon State's going to have to do the same thing. So they have to stay they got to stay two-dimensional to make it happen.
This is, after all, a rivalry game, though, and some would say you can throw the X's and O's out the window. I don't know that I agree with that, but some can say it. Here's what the two teams had to say this week about the Civil War.
It's a huge game. The state of Oregon's on the line.
A deal like this is to be embraced. It's fun to be involved in it.
The atmosphere is crazy, but we can't let that get to you too much. You think of them like any other team and just play. As a player, you have to be into it. But I mean, for me, it's another game.
I'd be lying if we said we didn't know that it was, the Civil War.
That is just a tease. I know you guys want to talk about this rivalry. We will talk about it after the break. And coming up later in the show, keys to the game. Jay tells us what OSU needs to do to win. Damon tells us what the Ducks need to do. But first,
you said you grew up a Duck fan, always dreamt to be a Duck. What do you hate most about Beavers?
Many Oregonians in starting roles for either the Ducks or the Beavers. Keanon Lowe is one of them. We go one-on-one with the Duck wideout when we come back.
Welcome back to the College Football Game Day Civil War Special.
Welcome back, Jake Zivin, Damon Griffin, and Jay Schaake. The Civil War is one of the oldest, one of the fiercest, one of the best rivalries in the entire country. Saturday is the 116th meeting between Oregon and Oregon State. The first was in 1894 when Oregon Agricultural College, that of course is now Oregon State, shut out the University of Oregon 16-0. The Ducks lead the overall series with 59 wins, 46 losses, and 10 ties. Each team has a streak of 8 wins in a row, and the Ducks have won the past 4 by an average of 19 points per game. We're going to look back to one particular Civil War, 1998 Senior Day at Parker Stadium, and the last regular season college game for Damon Griffin. Not a bad night, Damon. 10 catches, 133 yards, that early touchdown. But the Beavers sent Damon and the Ducks back to Eugene in a foul mood. A 44-41 double overtime win. The game widely cited as the one that really kick-started the turnaround of the Beaver football program. Love looking back at that old video. You guys each took part in your share of Civil Wars. What do you remember most from those games, and Damon specifically, as a player in the 90s? How was that game approached amongst the players back then?
You know, it was taken very seriously. The big reason why, especially in 94, 98, 95, excuse me, we needed those wins to get one to the Rose Bowl as well as the Cotton Bowl at the time. And we were always told, just because Oregon State's record was 2 or whatever, 3 or whatever, these guys were going to treat this game as a bowl game. So we knew we were going to get their best shots, and every year we did. So the rivalry was great for us. It was great for the city, and it was great to get back, but it was an awesome opportunity to play against those guys all the time.
Jay, you were on the other side, not just being on Oregon State. You were also on the coaching side of the rivalry. Did you guys try to keep the players level-headed, or did the coaching staff embrace the rivalry back then as well?
The 5 games that I was associated with were very, very close games. I was 2-3, and everybody that was ever associated with this game knows what their record was. And I was 2-3, and we had very, very tight ball games. We were 0-10 going into the game in '91, our first season at Oregon State. 0-10, and we went in and beat Oregon in that game to go 1-10, and it catapulted us into a little bit more momentum going forward. So, and every single game we played was very, very tight. The biggest difference was that 11-point win that we had in that first game. But it was 4 and 3 and 7 points. And they were hard-fought, emotional games. And you're right, we had to try to keep the emotion in check because we usually had 2 or 3 too many penalties on both sides of the ball, and it got a little chippy and it got a little bit crazy, and it did hurt both teams at that point.
A rivalry game, always fun. Can't wait for this Saturday. Well, there are not a lot of current prominent Ducks from the state of Oregon. Taylor Hart, Colt Lyerla, Keanon Lowe, the only starters from the state. Lowe has emerged this season with 22 catches, 244 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Our own Erik Elken sat down with the Jesuit High School product to talk the Civil War.
So let's start with life in the Lowe household. You've got a brother and a sister, mom and a dad. What was it like growing up, being an Oregonian with the Civil War in the house?
Yeah, I mean, our family has always rooted for the Ducks, but we were always, I mean, during Civil War we root for the Ducks, but all growing up we root for the Ducks and the Beavers. So I mean, it's always a lot of fun, and our whole house, mostly for the Ducks, and then my sister, because she was my sister, would go for the Beavers because I was one of the Ducks to win. So I mean, it was a lot of fun. I loved Civil War week.
What are some of your Civil War memories?
Man, there's a lot of them. I remember being young. I think it was probably like 2001 or something. Like the Keenan Howard punt return, 01. I think, I remember that.
Chip Kelly does such a good job of preaching win the day and every game being a Super Bowl and not hyping up one game more than the other. But for you, it's got to be a little bit different, right? I mean, how much does the Civil War have a little bit of extra meaning to you?
Yeah, I mean, it has a little extra meaning to me just because I've grown up in Oregon and have experienced this ever since I was a little kid. I remember being a little kid watching it on TV. So, and now I get the opportunities to play in them, and it's kind of like my dreams coming true in a way. So I always picture myself playing for the Ducks. So it's real cool. It has good little sentimental value to me,
Last time you played at Research Stadium, state championship game against Sheldon. What memories does that bring back, and what will it be like going back to Research to play in for the first time since then?
Yeah, I mean, that was my last football game of my career. That was, Jesuit High School is a special place to me, and I miss it a lot, and I miss all my friends there and all the people that have helped me grow into the person I am today at Jesuit High School. So, I mean, it'll bring back all them high school memories, high school football memories, and even though we lost that game, the state championship, it'll bring back some good memories.
You've been around a lot of Civil Wars. You've seen a lot of them. You've seen games when they've meant a lot, and games when it has been lopsided, one-sided. And it was like that last year for you guys. But now to see how well the Beavers have been doing this year, and to know that's going to be number 5 versus number 15, how much more special does it make a Civil War knowing that both teams are so competitive and there's so much on the line?
Yeah, it's awesome. And it's good to see the Beavers have a great year this year, and from last year, from where they were. So I've been watching them all season and rooting for them to win. So this matchup can be as good as it can be, and because that's what the fans of Oregon and Oregon State deserve.
You said you grew up a Duck fan, always dreamt to be a Duck. What do you hate most about the Beavers?
Nothing. I just don't like the color orange.
That's it?
Yeah, orange doesn't look too good on me.
So if they were a different color, you would be okay with being a Beaver?
You gotta reword it. You gotta reword it a little bit. I'm okay with the Beavers, but not being a Beaver. I'm a Duck.
Thanks a lot, Erik. Orange looks great on you, Jay.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Still ahead on the show, prediction time. Damon and Jay tell us what's going to happen on Saturday inside of Reser Stadium. But when we come back.
He looks like an astronaut or a jet age specialist, but it's Terry Baker.
He is the only Heisman Trophy winner from any Northwest school, and it's the 50th anniversary of his special season. We sit down with Terry Baker after the break.
Welcome back to the College Football Game Day Civil War Special.
Welcome back. I'm Jake Zivin. 50 years ago, in 1962, Oregon State quarterback Terry Baker became the only player from a Northwest team to win college football's highest individual honor. Our own Steven Nelson sat down with the Beaver legend on the Golden Jubilee anniversary of his Heisman winning season.
The offseason going into 1962, did you know that the season that was going to happen was going to happen?
It was just going to be another year. I thought it would be not much different than my junior year, to be quite honest with you. It never crossed my mind once that I might win the Heisman Trophy. It never occurred to me that I was even in the running for it.
Coaches, teammates never brought it up after you would have a big game.
It's not like you're pitching a no-hitter and you don't want to mention it to somebody. I don't think it was on anybody's radar screen. So it totally snuck up on me. I was called out of class to go over to the athletic director's office because there was a phone call that I had to answer. They announced to me that I'd won the Heisman Trophy. I told them thank you, and I went back to class. That was the way it was.
He looks like an astronaut or a jet age specialist, but it's Terry Baker.
Now, this season being the 50th anniversary of your historic Heisman season, how proud are you watching this Oregon State team have the success that they're having?
It's been a great year. It could have been a lot better year. It wouldn't have been far-fetched for this Civil War game to be a match between two undefeated teams. I feel Oregon State should have beat Stanford, and I'm sure Oregon thinks they should have beat Stanford. So we did lose to Washington up there, and it was just a poor game.
Now, if you look at the 62 team to the 2012, there are some interesting parallels. You know, maybe not exact similarities, but some similarities. This year's team won their first 6 games. Your team won their last 6 games. And a big loss that people look back at for different reasons was the game against Washington.
No question about it, and I do remember that game against Washington still to this day. And we should have won it.
The Civil War, your experience playing in it and now as an alum, what does it mean to you?
You know, it's the school that I went to. I'd like to see them win. If they win after the game, you feel great. You feel great the next day going to work. You tell people, you talk about it and everything. If they lost, it affects you. You're grumpy the next day. You don't feel good. You don't want to talk about it. It's a deal. It doesn't ruin my life or anything if they lose, but I certainly would like to see them win. And I expect it to be a close game. And I'm not saying Oregon State's going to win it for sure, but I think they certainly have a good chance of winning it.
You're going to go back to New York for the Heisman presentation. When you see that trophy, or when you see your portrait at the Heisman Trust, and when you look at things that remind you of that accomplishment, what do you see?
Well, I see a guy that's 50 years younger than I am today. You know, I don't think I'll be back there for the next 50th one, so I'll better take advantage of this one.
Great stuff with a legend. Well, coming up after the break, the keys to the game, the 3 things that the Ducks and Beavers each need to do to win on Saturday, and final score predictions after the break.
Welcome back to the College Football Game Day Civil War Special.
Welcome back, Jake Zivin, Damon Griffin, and Jay Schaake. All right, guys, time for the keys to the game. Damon, from a Duck perspective, Jay, from a Beaver perspective. We will start with Damon. If you are coaching the Ducks, what are 3 things you're concentrating on for Saturday?
My 3 things are this. First, we have to win on third down. Third down success. Last week against Stanford, we were 4 for 17. That cannot happen this week. Number 2, Kenyon Bonner has to have a great game. 66 yards against this defense. We will not win against Oregon State. You've got to remember, Oregon State is number 2 in Pac-12 in run defense. And number 3, special teams have to be special. It's not just about kicking the field goals. We need that to happen. But more importantly, we need some special teams returns. Black Mamba, let's make a play.
Jay, you are in charge of the Beavers. What 3 things do you focus on to beat the Ducks?
The first one is they need to control their emotions. This is a big game. They got to go out there and play lights out and play like their hair's on fire, but play obviously on the line and be under control. They have to control the ball. They have to keep Oregon's high-powered offense on the bench. If Oregon runs 100 plays like they did last year, Oregon State's in for a long day. They have to, number 3, they have to control Oregon's big play, explosive offense, and that's playing great defense and getting after them. Those are the 3 keys.
It is now time for our final predictions. I need a score from each. Damon, start with you. Final score on Saturday.
I got it close. I got it 24-21. I'm going with the Ducks.
Low scoring. Jay, how about you?
I think that's exactly right. It's 24-21. Beavers win the game.
A consensus on the score, but not who wins. Well, the game is at noon on Saturday. Our post-game show will start at 4 p.m. College football game day right here on ABC. Erik and Steven will be live out at Reser Stadium. The 3 of us will be here in the studio to break down the 116th Civil War. Damon Griffin, Jay Schaake, thanks for helping us preview this year's Civil War. For Damon and Jay, I'm Jake Zivin. Happy Thanksgiving and enjoy the game on Saturday.